Hello everyone, my name is Lucas Roat. For the Illinois EPA internship this summer, I've been working with a company called Clarke. Technically, I suppose Mosquito Control Products is who I was working for, but generally Clarke is a much larger company, which I'm going to talk about. So they're privately held, self-proclaimed global and environmental products and services company. They make pesticides for mosquitoes, as a matter of fact. They were established in 1946 as a family-operated business. It's still in family hands today. The son of the original owner is now the owner. It consists of a parent company called the Clarke Group, which has several subsidiaries that operate both in the country and internationally. I worked at the headquarters in St. Charles, Illinois. But it's not, people from all these subsidiaries work in the same office or different offices and plants. So, in fact, this Pacific Biologics, I don't know how to say it really, that's in Australia. We had a couple guys in the office for a week come from Australia, so I got to pick up on some of their lingo, which was kind of cool. What Clarke does, some of the products and services they offer, mosquito control is generally what they're based upon. They both treat and offer products for sale. So they only treat locally in Illinois. They go out, they've implemented a lot of new sustainable practices in how they do their own treatment for municipalities or whoever it is that they're contracted by, where the seasonal people that they have do the treatment actually ride around on bikes now, so they've cut carbon emissions by doing that. And then their products as well also have a sustainable side to them, which I'll get to. And then the other service that they offer are aquatic services. They obviously, for treating mosquitoes, they're going to treat standing bodies of water and also when you have ponding water, but for permanent bodies of water, they actually manage the ecosystem beyond just treating for mosquitoes and pests. They have aquatic plant management. They do mapping with real-time GPS that you can have a GIS interface for and get real-time data from sitting in your office for tracking mapping points at where portions of standing bodies of water were treated, for instance. And then they have emergency services that they offer. In fact, the guy whose office was right next to my cubicle, Woody, he was there like half the time because he was generally off in Texas. I know a month or two ago they had really bad storms and bad flooding, so they get contracted by like FEMA, for instance. If there's natural disasters with a lot of water involved, they have to go and treat those areas with aerial vehicles to prevent outbreaks of disease from occurring. And then, they don't have many permanent employees, 160 for having over 3,000 customers in the United States, and then also having international customers. Most of their employees are seasonal for the treatment applications. So Clarke's clientele include mosquito abatement districts, municipalities and local governments, health departments, private businesses. Generally the top three are their main customers though. So in 2009, Clarke came up with some sustainability goals. Surprisingly for a pesticide company, they are at the forefront of sustainability in the corporate world. And this is just a list of them, but the two main important ones that I want to talk about are in bold, because this is this is kind of what they had me working on all summer. One of their goals to achieve by 2014 was to reduce their waste stream by 50%, and they've reduced it by 57% since 2010. So they achieved that goal. But the other one is to incorporate cradle-to-cradle design philosophy in all their products and services. And this is an incredibly complex issue. green labeling is like, I worked with a guy who his entire job was essentially getting products registered with the EPA so that they could be sold legally, and working on getting green certifications for their products. So one of their efforts in reducing their waste is returnable and refillable drum program, which a lot of data that I had in several databases to analyze about that. They have bulk liquid that's distributed in 30 and 55 gallon plastic drums. It's generally ultra low volume aerosol spray that, abatement districts, if anyone lives in the suburbs, they know that late at night in the summer, these creepy trucks roll around spraying chemicals and everyone closes their windows because it's just kind of weird. But it's actually pretty generally low concentration chemical. I don't think it's very dangerous. But anyways, so disposal of these drums by their customers to the landfill is a regulated procedure, because when you have this liquid inside, it's going to leave a residue, and there are regulations on how much that residue can remain before it can be either disposed of in a landfill, or in some areas they actually allow you to burn it. I guess that's still a practice that's out there, although less common. So the EPA has a special procedure that you need to abide by for that. And a lot of places actually contract out special service providers that handle hazardous waste to take care of these drums for them, which it requires them to pay a fee to do that. And Clarke actually offers a gross collection, rinsing, and reusing program. So not only is Clarke saving themselves from having to buy new drums every time they refill one by returning these drums, they're offsetting their waste to the landfill, and the customer also doesn't have to pay the special hazardous waste handler to pick it up, and they're not incurring that fee anymore. But Clarke's kind of breaking out even in this program, because the logistics behind returning these drums, rinsing them, and disposing of the rinsate is actually incurred in the cost of purchasing a new one anyways. So they don't care, though. They would rather have that environmental impact, or a positive environmental impact, than worry about the cost at this point. So this is just kind of like process map of that return and refill process. To take a cue from Keith, if you see the closed loop there, that's a successful return and refill process. But if you see at the dead end down in the corner, where the customer is left with triple rinsing and disposing to the landfill, that's kind of an unsuccessful return and refill process. And then there is the cradle-to-cradle packaging. So Clarke recently redesigned corrugated shipping boxes just to reduce the amount of stock that's going into those. 73% of all boxes were reduced in their corrugate stock, saving approximately 42,000 square feet of corrugate, $7,500 savings in 2013. But this next gen, as they call it, C2C packaging is still desired. So this I did a lot of research on. I worked with one of Clarke's regulatory compliance officers on this. Currently they have a product line, it's called Natular, and what it is a larvicide, and the active ingredient is a chemical called spinosad, which is actually a combination of two other derivatives from fermentation of bacteria that live in the soil. So it's a naturally derived chemical that is the active ingredient in these products. And it's, I believe, there's two lines, and one has 6.25% and the other is 8.33% of the active ingredient. And the way they work is that they're in a calcified chemical matrix, and for larvicides, what they want to do is you treat a body of water at a particular time, predicting that there's going to be larvae in that water, so you're preventing them from hatching and then having a mosquito problem. So you're preventing it before the mosquitoes even exist. So what these natural products do is, like I said, they're in a calcified matrix, and you throw it in the water, and it incredibly slowly releases the active ingredient at small concentrations, so it's there for a prolonged amount of time. And they get a better image because it's this spinosad. It's a naturally derived chemical. What they've recently managed to achieve is they have a polyvinyl alcohol lining that they've individually wrapped each of these tablets in. So prior to this, the customer received a box. Inside the box were, I don't know, I'd say for instance a 40-pound box is going to contain, I don't know, several dozen of these tabs, or little tablets, and inside the box they're all inside of another poly bag, like a polymer bag. Now they're all loose on the inside of this polymer bag, and incidentally they're going to leave a residue on the inside of this bag, so it's seen as a hazardous waste, or and for that reason it can't be recycled like with other plastics, so therefore it has to be disposed of to the landfill. What they've managed to do is take all these tablets and individually wrap them inside of this poly bag. The poly bag no longer has a residue on the inside of it after the customer takes out the tablets by themselves, and it's this polyvinyl alcohol is rapidly biodegradable. In fact, the first time they showed me it, they had a little beaker of water out there and dunked it in, and within 45 seconds it was completely gone. You couldn't tell it was there at all anymore. So now this product is registered with OMRI, the Organic Materials Review Institute, which certifies not organics such as organic foods, but what they do certify are materials that can be used in application or handling of organics, or organically certified products. So they actually have a pesticide that is registered with OMRI. They have to register all the materials, so the polyvinyl alcohol, the actual product itself. And what they want to do next is see if they can get cradle-to-cradle packaging. At first they were just looking at the packaging getting certified, but after I looked into it, for the amount of money that they're going to be investing into this, it may be well worth it to look at certifying the entire product. So one thing, all right, this is kind of like where I started off. We wanted to do sort of a market study and get an idea of where Clarke's biggest regions of improvement existed out there in their customer base. Who were the best customers to focus on? What were the best scenarios to focus on for targeting customers for returnable packaging solutions? And also figuring out what made disposing of packaging waste the most difficult part of disposing that waste for customers. So we designed two surveys, one qualitative, one quantitative. The qualitative survey was first. It was meant to be a lot more descriptive, get a lot more out of customers. We wanted to sort of narrow down to a smaller number of questions that we could put into a very short form survey and distribute on SurveyMonkey to a massive number of customers. We did that. The qualitative had about 10 questions. A lot of those were more, elaborate on this, please. I kind of had to call customers and leave a bunch of voicemails and talk to people I spoke with people from California, Utah, I think Virginia, so all over the U.S. Not many people answered or returned my calls though. Some did. But we narrowed down the qualitative questions to 7 questions that were distributed on SurveyMonkey. 3 of them they only answered if they were actually customers that purchased drums, because we were trying to attain more information about the drum return program and why customers may or may not be responding to that and what we could do to change that. So the quantitative survey we sent out had, there were 540 people essentially that we sampled or that we sent the survey to, and 80 responded. So I don't know if that's like 15% about, something like that. And the customers of Clarke's that we sampled from, like I said earlier, they're pretty much their main three customer bases are health departments, mosquito abatement districts, and municipalities, local governments. And this sort of supports the reasoning behind sampling from these groups. You can see that mosquito abatement districts, so Clarke has essentially 6 different packaging types that their products are sold in: bags, cases, drums, gallons, totes, and all the other ones pails, but that's all done internally and internationally. We were trying to focus on strictly national customers outside of the company. So obviously mosquito abatement districts vastly overshadow all the other customers and their market share. And then you have municipalities. This distributor, that's I guess in like the central northern plains area, North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, those areas where there's a lot less customers, or I guess people that would be purchasing products in centralized locations. Everything's much more sparse. They have one distributor take care of all of those locations in aggregate, so that's just one customer. We couldn't really use him for the survey and ask him some of these questions because it may not translate very well. So then the next biggest shareholder are health departments. And then other just consists of like golf courses, residential, very sparsely sparse customers. So the qualitative survey, the questions consisted of what kind of packaging types you purchase your products in, how do you handle the products when you receive them. We really wanted to get an understanding of, are these customers taking their drums, sticking it in a corner somewhere in their warehouse, using half of it and then forgetting about it, and that's why we never see the drum again, and then in 10 years they have no idea what was even in the drum anymore because none of the same people work there still. So yeah, handling of the products, storage, disposal choices of packaging. So how are you disposing of this? It was a lot easier to ask people over the phone because, you could tell if they were uncomfortable about answering honestly. People know whether or not something should or should not be recycled or thrown away, and sometimes if you make them feel less guilty about answering that way, you'll get a more honest answer. Whereas if they're clicking buttons on a survey, you don't know if they're being totally honest or not. And then there's a Likert scale question just on a range of 1 to 7. Where does packaging waste disposal fall for you as a pain point? Asked about their management of empty drums and their receptivity of returnable packaging solutions. From that, the quantitative survey consisted of what kind of packaging types, how many orders per year do you receive, disposal choices, the pain scale, and the management of empty drums. Again, just 3 yes or no questions. This is a distribution of just a bar chart of the pain points. Like I said, it was a scale from 1 to 7, 1 being not a problem, 4 just a task, and 7 is problematic or a big hassle. The funny thing is that people from the qualitative surveys where I talked to them on the phone seem to be a lot more honest because most of them answered 6 and 7, whereas I believe this is only 1 person answered 6 and 1 person answered 7. In fact, the customer who answered 7 was Metro Mosquito Vector and Control District in Minnesota. They handle a huge area in Minnesota over multiple counties. In fact, they sent us a picture recently of a warehouse filled with gallons, and just gallons of 2.5 gallons and 1 gallon jugs of empty liquid pesticides that they had to dispose of somehow, and they weren't just going to throw them all away to the landfill. So Clarke has some actual special pilot programs going on with them currently, but they're pretty big scale. They have helicopters and everything. So the quantitative survey results for package type and disposal route. This is probably, I think, the most important one because, as you can see, it's this matrix. You've got choices of where you're sending it, landfill. Are you using it or disposing of it as hazardous waste? Are you recycling it, returning it to the vendor, repurposing it, or other? Which some people explain for other that some places had. Idaho had a chipping program, so if they had drums. They were sending it to this chipping program, whatever that was. And then actually a few customers said that they were burning bags, I believe. No, maybe not bags. Some container type they were actually burning instead of sending to the landfill in whatever county it is that they were in. So yeah. And then taking the customer responses, whether they answered that's where they were sending their waste or not, and comparing that with, cross-referencing that with I had a database full of sales data for the past few years, and I took that and figured out, they said they were sending their packaging here, and in their records, this is how much of that package type they've purchased. I just, said, okay, so that means 3,000 some bags went to the landfill from the database. And yeah, I just tested this model to see if package type was independent of the disposal location, which it definitely was not. And that also would indicate to me whether any of the packaging types distributions were different from one another or not, and the same with the disposal route locations. So that sort of told me how to deal with the data from this. One thing that does make this difficult is the zeros, though, and using this as a predictive model, I kind of had to do something to take care of those zeros. So I used this iterational proportional fitting model to kind of adjust those so they weren't zero, because statistically they may not be, or probabilistically they may not be zero. Somebody could have answered that if we sampled from enough people. So that takes care of that, and also proving whether or not we've got a good model fit. So I got some expected values there, fit the model pretty well. And then what I was able to do, because you're not going to know for sure what the numbers are across the bottom, but when you go into, for instance, I went into the database and found all the customers from 2013, and I took their package type distribution, so how many customers bought bags, cases, drums, gallons, and totes, and I compared it to this distribution to test whether they were similar enough to apply this whole chart to it and estimate, where their packaging types were going in the past from all the customers instead of just these 80. And this is what it looks like from 2013. So these are quantities. Actually, they're not like weights or anything. I did weight them though, but as you can see, most of the packaging types are gallons, and they're actually held by a very small number of customers though, which makes that a very unique situation to deal with. And then most packaging types the largest number of quantities packaging were recycled, but that's because they were the gallons, and you can triple rinse those and recycle them. It's a lot easier to deal with than drums too. Did the same thing for 2014 and 2015. And then I took and I summarized, I had to go through and find out through another database all of the components of the packaging types and their weights, and I figured out what in weight, how many pounds of packaging were they sending to the landfill over the last 3 years. the totes are actually kind of exaggerated. That's because each tote, they have these totes that are about, I don't know, 5 feet by 5 feet, something like that, and they hold 1,600 pounds and 200 pound, or 1,600 and 2,000 pounds of granular material. And the actual packaging itself is 378 pounds, so that's just 2 totes being sent to the landfill in 2013 and 3 in 2014. Unfortunately, that results in a lot of weight of packaging. So, after doing the survey, we wanted to use that information and come back to this cradle-to-cradle packaging or cradle-to-cradle product certification idea, which we decided to focus on the Natural Art tablets, which are already OMRI certified. I think they have the best shot of getting anywhere with cradle-to-cradle. So XRT and T30 are the 2 formulations. The only difference is one's like round and the other's rectangular shape. One lasts longer than the other. T30 is like for 30 days, and XRT is for, I'm not sure how long. Like I said, spinosad is the active ingredient. OMRI listed. The cradle-to-cradle goal is to divert all waste from the landfill. Even if they can't get the certification, they certainly want to be able to prove that they are diverting waste from landfill. The tablets are individually wrapped, and we were kind of throwing darts in the dark all summer, trying to get in touch with people to cooperate with us on this returnable shipment program or returnable container program. Whether it was actual vendors for containers themselves or logistics companies, we had some good leads, but nothing seemed to work out. One logistics company that we were working with for a little while, they came back at us with some estimates, and when they said that they were going to charge us $140 to return a single little tote that you would see sitting on the shelf in Jewel, that became ridiculous. Actually, that's the kind of tote I'm talking about. So this is actually big enough to hold 40 pounds of Natural Art tablets. And with this, what we can do is implement a method to put those individually wrapped tablets in there, ship this. The customer gets it. There's a label on it already that has the return mailing information already on it. They use the tablets, and then what they do is, the way that this label is on there, there's a little pocket inside, and you pull this out and pull the backing off, and it's got a sticky back, and you put it on there, and then you just return this by FedEx to Clarke, and rather than it being $140 managed through some logistics firm, it's like $10 or $15 that Clarke incurs the cost for. So from Natural Art products, this is just a summary of how much they've contributed to the landfill over the past 3 years. Over 3,000 pounds in 13, 4,000 in 14, and this database only went up to the end of May, so this year it looks like it's going to actually exceed both of those years, but it's been over 10,000 pounds the last 3 years. And this is something we're still working on, minimizing the cost. So with the returnable packaging, considering a 75% annual return rate of that, our first year we're going to incur more costs because there's the initial buying of the actual containers themselves. With that 75% return rate and the T30, we would expect to see about a $3,000 drop in cost, but that would remain level unless we could somehow increase customer return rates after that. And the same with XRT. The first year, that would be huge cost, $60,000 almost, $54,000, and then that would drop off almost $20,000, but that would remain level, which is still incredibly higher than just sending it out in the boxes as far as cost goes. Yeah, so still a lot to work on with investigating whether or not it meets the standards of Cradle-to-Cradle. That's all that stuff's kind of not very good for presentation, though. You wouldn't like to. It's a lot of paperwork and documents and legal stuff, and but I think they're going to get somewhere. I laid out a pretty good framework for them so far. So, does anybody have any questions? Mike?
Quick question on the one with the, I believe it was the next gen packaging that kind of dissolves.
Uh-huh.
Are those just for capsule sizes, or do they make them in bags?
Oh,
or how big?
They're small. I mean, it's polyvinyl alcohol. I don't know. It's very easily biodegradable. They had to put them through a durability test. So they did like small bench scale, where they put it in a really moist, hot room. They actually have rooms that they test like sprayers on, because they sell the sprayers for the ULV sprayers for the liquid pesticides. So they like put it in that room and did some tests on it to test the durability, because if they're sending it across the country or even internationally, they want to know how well that film is going to hold up. And I think that as the larger it gets, it becomes more,
What was the packaging logistics company you looked at?
Oh, it was Echo Global Logistics.
Echo Global Logistics.
Yeah.
ECHO or ECO?
ECHO.
ECHO.
Yeah. They actually, I know someone. I have a contact there. I contacted them because I saw on their website they have already implemented a program with Culligan. They do like the water coolers in offices. So you would think that they would have this perfected, returning onesies and twosies, or maybe they have like half a truckload. That's what our problem was dealing with less than truckload returns. Because whereas FedEx, you put a stamp on it, $10, $15 to return an empty container. Less than truckload, you're paying a base fee, which could be $75 to $90, and if it's a little tiny container, neither the customer nor Clarke wants to incur that cost.
Yeah, I know John Deere has a reusable shipping container program for like when they're sending out parts and stuff. I wonder if they use a consultant or just do it themselves. Interesting.
Do they? I haven't seen John Deere semis or like.
It's John Deere like when they send a part.
Yeah. Yeah. So FedEx.
So they don't do truckloads.
Yeah.
It does go that way. And then my other question is, did you work with the Cradle-to-Cradle Products Innovation Institute? That's who does the certification, right?
Well, the way this certification works, the institute, they're sort of like. They're the body, I don't know, they're like the authoritative body over the whole process. In the United States, it might be North America, all of North America, there are two, what you have to do is you have to get in contact with an auditor, or an arbiter, that's what they call it, a third-party arbiter. And actually, Michael Brungart, whatever the guy's name is, it was, the architect and then the chemist who started it, and Brungart, he has his company here, and they're one of the third-party arbiters, which I don't know if that's like conflict of interest or anything, but another one of the arbiters is some toxicology company, research company out in Virginia. So those are the only two arbiters, and you have to pay like ISO 1701 certified labs to do all these tests that are thousands of dollars. We essentially got an estimate of it to be about $50,000 investment per product to get Cradle-to-Cradle.
Certified.
Yeah.
The Brungart arbiters in Illinois?
No, they're also somewhere on the East Coast. I think that might be Virginia also.
Got it.
Yeah.